March 23, 2024, Jasmine Armstrong's voice was permanently silenced. At 33, she stood at the threshold of extraordinary achievement. A doctoral candidate at Florida State University, researching racial identity and social justice, her dissertation examining how Black women are stereotyped in higher education. She was the first in her family to attend college, blazing a trail her siblings would follow. Her academic brilliance was matched only by her devotion to her 3 children, ages 6 to 9. That morning in Temple, Texas should have been unremarkable. Instead, it became the moment when her estranged husband, Britain Armstrong, ended her promising future with a gunshot. Her children lost their mother. The academic world lost a rising voice. Her family lost their beacon. And it happened not in a random act of violence, but in what should have been the safety of her home. How many women around you are silently enduring what Jasmine faced? The neighbor who suddenly stopped hosting gatherings. Your colleague whose laugh has grown quieter. Your friend who checks her phone too often, anxiety flashing across her face. What signs do we miss when we don't look closely enough? At what point could someone have intervened to save Jasmine's life? When does a relationship cross the line from troubled to dangerous? The most devastating truth about domestic violence is its invisibility, until it isn't. By then, it's often too late. For Jasmine, the final escalation came after she allegedly reported sexual assault by Britain. What pushed him to that fatal decision? What information had she discovered about him that made staying impossible and leaving deadly? These questions aren't academic. They're matters of life and death for thousands of women just like Jasmine. I need you to pause for a moment. Think about your own community, your neighborhood, workplace, or social circle. Have you ever noticed someone withdraw suddenly? A friend whose partner always seems to monitor their phone? A relative who stops attending family gatherings? These subtle shifts might be more than just changes in personality. They could be distress signals. Today, as we examine what happened to Jasmine Armstrong, I want you to consider this question. What would you do if you suspected someone in your life was experiencing domestic abuse? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Would you intervene directly? Contact authorities? Offer resources? Or would uncertainty keep you silent? Many viewers have shared powerful insights on this topic. Some have written about successfully helping friends escape dangerous situations. Others have expressed regret about not acting on their instincts when they suspected something was wrong. Your comment could provide the exact perspective someone else needs to hear today. It might even give another viewer the courage to reach out to someone they're concerned about. Let's create a community here that doesn't just watch these stories, but learns from them and takes action. Where are you watching from today? Jasmine Armstrong's journey through academia wasn't just remarkable, it was revolutionary for her family. As the first person in her lineage to attend college, she didn't simply open a door. She built an entirely new pathway that her siblings would later follow. Her academic journey began with determination and culminated at Florida State University, where she was on the verge of completing her doctoral program. Every paper she wrote, every lecture she delivered, every late night spent analyzing research data represented more than personal ambition. It embodied generational progress. For Jasmine, education wasn't merely about acquiring knowledge. It was about transformation. Her presence in academic spaces, historically dominated by others, made a statement. She navigated the challenges of graduate-level education while simultaneously managing the responsibilities of motherhood and marriage. Fellow students described her as intellectually fearless, someone who asked difficult questions and challenged conventional thinking. Professors noted her exceptional ability to connect theory with lived experience, bringing authenticity to academic discussions that often remained abstract. By the time she reached the dissertation phase of her doctoral program, Jasmine had already established herself as someone whose voice mattered. Her research wasn't just meeting requirements, it was blazing new trails in sociological understanding. Jasmine's doctoral research centered on examining how Black women are stereotyped within higher education, a topic that wasn't just academic for her, but deeply personal. Her dissertation illuminated the invisible barriers that women of color face in academic environments. Colleagues remember how she approached this work with methodical precision and passionate advocacy. She conducted extensive interviews, gathering testimonies from women whose experiences mirrored her own. Her research framework challenged established norms and pushed for institutional accountability. What distinguished Jasmine's academic contributions was her insistence on practical applications. She wasn't content with theory alone. She developed actionable recommendations for universities to create more equitable environments. Her work gained attention for connecting individual experiences to systemic patterns, demonstrating how personal narratives could inform institutional change. As one professor noted, Jasmine didn't just study social justice, she embodied it in her methodologies, her analysis, and her conclusions. Beyond academia, Jasmine defined herself first as a mother to her 3 children. Those who knew her described how she would schedule research interviews around school pickups and organize community meetings that her children could attend. Her oldest child, diagnosed with autism, received her fierce advocacy in educational settings. She showed up differently than most academics, recalled a community partner. Jasmine brought her whole self, professor, mother, advocate, to every space she entered. In Temple, Texas, Jasmine established reading programs for underserved neighborhoods and mentored young girls considering college. She organized workshops where parents could learn about educational opportunities for their children, creating pathways similar to the one she had forged. Her parenting philosophy mirrored her research, focused on empowerment, identity, and breaking generational barriers. She often said that raising her children to recognize their value in a world that might question it was her most important work. Jasmine came from a household where education was revered, despite neither parent having the opportunity to attend college. Her mother often said, "What we couldn't do, you will," instilling in Jasmine and her siblings a profound respect for learning. This family foundation proved fertile ground for academic achievement. Following Jasmine's lead, 2 of her sisters pursued higher education, one eventually earning a PhD herself. Their parents created an environment where questions were encouraged and intellectual curiosity was celebrated, even with limited resources. Central to their family values was the concept of lifting as you climb, the idea that personal success meant nothing if not used to elevate others. This principle guided Jasmine's interactions with students she mentored, colleagues she supported, and most importantly, her own children. Her father taught her to question systems rather than accept them blindly, a value evident in both her parenting and her research methodologies. This critical thinking became her signature approach to both scholarship and life. To those who knew him casually, Britain Armstrong presented himself as a family man. Raised by his mother and stepfather, he portrayed the image of a devoted father who actively participated in his children's lives. His social media accounts displayed family outings, birthday celebrations, and proud parenting moments. Britain's interests included painting, gaming, and sports, particularly following the Dallas Cowboys. He positioned himself as a man of faith, regularly attending church services and incorporating religious beliefs into his family life. Coworkers described him as quiet but pleasant, someone who kept personal matters private. This carefully constructed image made what happened on March 23rd all the more shocking to those who only knew his public self. Many expressed the familiar refrain, "He didn't seem like the type." Yet this disconnect between public presentation and private behavior is common in domestic violence cases. Britain maintained social relationships and employment, appearing functional and normal to outside observers. He compartmentalized his life effectively, presenting different versions of himself in different contexts. This ability to maintain a respectable public image while engaging in abusive behavior behind closed doors demonstrates why domestic violence often remains hidden until it erupts catastrophically. The private reality of Jasmine and Britain's marriage differed starkly from their public appearance. Friends noted that Britain often interrupted Jasmine during conversations, subtly undermining her accomplishments or redirecting attention. At gatherings, he frequently checked her whereabouts or monitored her phone. As Jasmine's academic career progressed, tensions escalated. Her success seemed to coincide with increased control tactics at home. Colleagues noticed she began declining evening events, explaining that Britain preferred she come straight home. The power imbalance manifested in financial decisions as well. Despite Jasmine's growing academic standing, Britain maintained primary control over household finances. Her sister later revealed that Jasmine had to account for every purchase, while Britain made decisions unilaterally. These dynamics intensified when Jasmine began receiving recognition for her research. What appeared as protectiveness to outsiders revealed itself as possessiveness to those closest to them, a distinction that would prove critical as events unfolded. Those closest to Jasmine noticed gradual but concerning changes. She began canceling plans last minute, often with vague explanations. Her typically prompt communication became sporadic, with unexplained periods of silence. A colleague recalled Jasmine appearing startled when her phone rang during meetings, immediately checking the caller ID. Another remembered how she would rush from department gatherings explaining, "Britain expects me home by now." Her wardrobe shifted toward more conservative clothing, even in warm weather. When questioned about a visible bruise once, she quickly attributed it to bumping into furniture. Most telling was her diminishing digital presence. Once active on academic social platforms, her posts became infrequent and impersonal. She changed privacy settings and removed tagged photos. Her mother later admitted noticing Jasmine's hesitation when discussing home life during calls. She'd pause before answering questions about Britain, as if calculating the safest response. "I recognized it, but didn't know what it meant." In the weeks before her death, Jasmine took the devastating step of reporting sexual assault allegations against Britain. This disclosure marked a critical turning point in their deteriorating relationship. According to those familiar with the case, Jasmine had confided in a trusted friend and academic advisor before formally reporting the alleged assault. The decision to come forward represented an exceptional act of courage, particularly given her awareness of the potential consequences. For victims of intimate partner violence, reporting sexual assault often triggers the most dangerous period in the relationship. When abusers sense their control slipping, violence frequently escalates. Precisely what appears to have happened in Jasmine's case. The allegations themselves remain confidential in official records, but their impact was immediate and far-reaching. Friends reported that Jasmine had begun exploring housing options away from the family home. She had contacted legal counsel regarding both the assault allegations and potential custody arrangements. Britain's response to these allegations appeared outwardly controlled, yet increasingly volatile in private. A neighbor reported overhearing heated arguments in the days leading up to March 23rd. These allegations likely represented both Jasmine's breaking point and the catalyst for Britain's lethal violence, a tragically common outcome when victims attempt to reclaim their autonomy and safety. The 48 hours before March 23rd revealed a situation rapidly deteriorating. On Thursday evening, Jasmine had contacted her sister, expressing her intention to leave the marriage permanently. She mentioned having discovered information about Britain that confirmed her decision was necessary for her safety. Friday morning, Jasmine met with a divorce attorney and began documenting household belongings. That afternoon, she visited her children's school to discuss potential changes to pickup authorizations. These methodical preparations indicated she was implementing a carefully considered exit plan. By Friday evening, witnesses reported seeing Britain making multiple trips between his car and the house, potentially removing items. A neighbor observed him appearing agitated while on a phone call in his driveway around 10 p.m. Saturday morning began with Jasmine calling her mother at 6:30 a.m., confirming plans to bring the children to stay with her the following week. This call, lasting just 4 minutes, would be their final conversation. Between 7:15 and 7:45 a.m., Britain returned to the house after reportedly spending the night elsewhere. Cell phone records indicate he called Jasmine 3 times in this window. Security camera footage from a neighboring property captured his arrival at 7:48 a.m., just 7 minutes before violence erupted. At 7:55 a.m., emergency services received a distress call from the Armstrong residence on Broken Shoe Trail. A neighbor reported hearing shouting followed by what they believed was a gunshot. Police arrived within minutes to find Jasmine unresponsive with a fatal gunshot wound. The position and evidence at the scene suggested she had been attempting to leave the house when she was shot. Her car keys were found in her hand, and a packed overnight bag was discovered near the front door. The 3 children were found unharmed but traumatized in an upstairs bedroom. The oldest child later told a victim advocate that they had heard their parents arguing before their mother told them to go upstairs and lock the door. Evidence indicated that Britain had confronted Jasmine in the entryway of their home, blocking her exit before firing the fatal shot with a handgun registered in his name. After the shooting, Britain fled the scene in his silver sedan, triggering an immediate police alert. Law enforcement quickly identified his vehicle heading southbound on Interstate 35. When officers attempted to initiate a traffic stop, Britain accelerated, leading to a high-speed pursuit. The chase continued for approximately 20 miles, with Britain driving erratically at speeds exceeding 90 miles per hour. Dashcam footage shows his vehicle weaving through traffic, narrowly avoiding multiple collisions. Near Lorena, Texas, Britain lost control of his car while attempting to exit the highway. The vehicle spun across the access road before coming to rest against a guardrail. As officers approached with caution, they heard a single gunshot from within the vehicle. When police reached the car, they discovered Britain had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. The handgun recovered matched the weapon used in Jasmine's murder, confirming the case as a murder-suicide. News of the murder-suicide devastated multiple communities simultaneously. In Temple, neighbors gathered outside the police perimeter, many in disbelief. At Florida State University, Jasmine's academic department held an emergency meeting to coordinate support for students affected by her loss. The most urgent concern became the welfare of the 3 Armstrong children, now suddenly orphaned. Jasmine's parents immediately traveled to Texas to care for their grandchildren, particularly the eldest with autism, who required specialized support during the transition. A GoFundMe campaign established by colleagues raised over $50,000 within 72 hours to support the children's immediate needs and future care. Local businesses in Temple organized meal deliveries, while Jasmine's academic department established a scholarship fund in her name. Law enforcement arranged specialized trauma counseling for the children, who were placed under temporary guardianship of their maternal grandparents, pending formal custody arrangements. The community's swift mobilization demonstrated how deeply Jasmine had touched the lives around her. The tragedy of Jasmine Armstrong's death resulted from multiple interconnected factors, rather than a single cause. Domestic violence experts point to several critical elements that create environments where lethal violence becomes more likely. First, the most dangerous time for victims is during separation. Jasmine's decision to leave the marriage significantly increased her risk. Studies show that 75% of domestic homicides occur during or after separation. Second, the recent sexual assault allegations represented a direct challenge to Britain's control and public image. Such challenges often trigger violent responses in abusers who perceive their authority being undermined. Third, access to firearms dramatically increases lethality in domestic violence situations. Britain's possession of a registered handgun provided immediate means when his emotions escalated. Fourth, inadequate intervention systems failed to provide protection during this critical period. Despite Jasmine taking steps to leave, protective mechanisms weren't sufficiently in place to ensure her safety during this high-risk transition. These factors combined created circumstances where prevention opportunities were missed and violence escalated fatally. The relationship between Jasmine and Britain had deteriorated into a dangerous power struggle. As Jasmine's academic career advanced, Britain appeared increasingly threatened by her independence and recognition. Friends noted his dismissive comments about her research, calling it just papers nobody reads. Financial tensions emerged as Jasmine began earning fellowships and grants. Britain insisted on controlling these funds, creating conflict when she attempted to maintain separate accounts. This economic control is a recognized tactic in abusive relationships. Their parenting approaches also clashed. Jasmine emphasized education and independence for their children, while Britain enforced strict compliance through intimidation. This fundamentally different view of family roles created constant friction. Most significantly, Jasmine had discovered information about Britain that changed her perception of their entire relationship. While the exact nature remains private, this revelation prompted her final decision to leave. When confronted with this knowledge, Britain's response was not reconciliation or explanation, but escalation and ultimately violence. The Armstrong case reflects broader social patterns that often underpin domestic violence. Britain's behavior manifested classic elements of patriarchal control, viewing Jasmine's academic success as a threat rather than an achievement to celebrate. As Jasmine gained recognition in her field, Britain faced perceived challenges to traditional masculinity. Her rising status contradicted conventional expectations that husbands should maintain dominance in marriage. Rather than adapting to an equal partnership, he intensified control tactics. These dynamics exist within a culture that still often measures male worth through authority and dominance. Britain's religious community reportedly emphasized male headship in families, potentially reinforcing his belief that Jasmine's independence represented failure on his part. For Jasmine, contradictory expectations created additional pressure. She navigated demands to be simultaneously a dedicated mother, supportive wife, and ambitious academic, roles that society often presents as incompatible. When she prioritized her safety and autonomy, the cost proved devastating. While Britain's actions cannot be excused by mental health considerations, understanding his psychological state provides context for prevention in similar cases. Evidence suggests Britain experienced acute emotional distress following Jasmine's assault allegations and decision to leave. His emotional regulation appeared to collapse when faced with losing control of the relationship and potential public exposure. His decision to take his own life after killing Jasmine indicates he saw no future beyond this act of violence, a distorted perspective characteristic of individuals in psychological crisis. The murder-suicide pattern often emerges when perpetrators cannot separate their identity from their relationship. Friends later revealed Britain had shown signs of increasing isolation and emotional volatility in recent months, but had rejected suggestions to seek counseling. His resistance reflects common barriers men face in acknowledging psychological distress. This case demonstrates how untreated emotional issues combined with controlling tendencies create conditions where violence becomes the perceived solution to relationship problems. In the aftermath of this tragedy, 3 young lives were fundamentally altered. The Armstrong children, ages 6, 8, and 9, experienced a catastrophic loss that few can comprehend: the violent death of their mother and subsequent suicide of their father within hours. Child trauma specialists note that witnessing or being proximate to domestic homicide creates profound psychological impacts. These children not only lost both parents, but did so in circumstances that defy a child's capacity to process or understand. The immediate effects manifested differently in each child. The youngest became withdrawn and experienced regression in basic skills. The middle child developed intense separation anxiety, becoming distressed whenever caregivers left their sight. The oldest exhibited both protective behaviors toward younger siblings and unpredictable emotional outbursts. Beyond grief, these children must navigate complex emotions including confusion, anger, fear, and even misplaced guilt, all while adapting to a completely new living situation with their grandparents. The eldest Armstrong child, age 9, faces additional challenges processing this trauma due to autism. For children on the autism spectrum, sudden disruption of routine and environment can be profoundly destabilizing beyond the trauma itself. This child had developed specific routines with both parents. Particular ways Jasmine would explain changes, comfort techniques Britain used at bedtime. The abrupt loss of these familiar patterns compounds grief with disorientation. Communication barriers present another challenge. The child struggles to express complex emotions verbally, leading to behavioral manifestations of grief that caregivers must learn to interpret. A specialized trauma counselor noted that traditional grief counseling often relies on verbal processing that may be inaccessible to this child. Sensory sensitivities also complicate the transition. New living environments, different textures, sounds, and smells in the grandparents' home, all present additional stressors during an already overwhelming time. The child's educational team has implemented a comprehensive support plan, including visual schedules to provide predictability, sensory abilities for regulation, and consistent communication methods across home and school settings. Jasmine's parents have committed to specialized training to understand their grandchild's needs, working closely with autism specialists to create stability within their new family structure. I want to pause here and ask you to consider something important. The Armstrong children face a future without either parent, a reality thousands of children experience each year due to domestic violence. What systems should be in place to support these children? How might schools, communities, and extended families better respond to their unique needs? What resources would you prioritize if you could redesign how we help these young survivors? Your perspective matters in this conversation. Perhaps you work with children professionally, have personal experience with trauma, or simply care deeply about protecting vulnerable youth. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights might help another viewer who's supporting a child in a similar situation, or influence someone working to improve these support systems. This community consistently offers thoughtful perspectives on these difficult topics. I'm particularly interested in hearing what concrete actions you believe would make the most difference for children like the Armstrongs. Domestic violence rarely begins with physical attacks. Instead, it typically starts with subtle controlling behaviors, monitoring phone usage, criticizing friends or family, making financial decisions without consultation, or requiring constant check-ins. Watch for concerning patterns in relationships, isolation from support networks, personality changes, unexplained injuries, or excessive worry about a partner's reactions. Pay attention when someone begins canceling plans, appears anxious about time constraints, or seems unable to make independent decisions. These behaviors often intensify gradually, making them difficult to identify. The progression from controlling behavior to physical violence may take months or years, but recognizing these early indicators creates opportunities for intervention before situations become deadly. Intervention doesn't require dramatic confrontation. Often, the most effective community response begins with simple connection. Maintain contact with isolated friends. Ask direct questions when you notice concerning changes. Are you safe at home? Or, I've noticed you seem different, can I help? Create opportunities for private conversation without their partner present. Offer specific assistance rather than vague support. I can help you find a lawyer, or you can stay with me if needed. Respect autonomy. Victims must make their own decisions about leaving. Your role is to provide options, not demands. Document concerns, offer resources without judgment, and remain consistently available. Sometimes being a reliable witness is the most crucial intervention. Effective response to domestic violence requires coordinated action across multiple systems. Law enforcement needs specialized training to identify high-risk situations and intervene appropriately, particularly during separation periods when danger peaks. Protective orders provide legal boundaries, but implementation often lacks consistent enforcement. These orders work best when integrated with comprehensive safety planning and regular monitoring. Domestic violence shelters offer immediate physical safety, while advocates help navigate legal, housing, and financial challenges. Many communities have specialized courts handling domestic violence cases. The most effective approach combines immediate crisis response with long-term support, addressing both physical safety and the economic, legal, and emotional barriers that often prevent victims from permanently leaving dangerous relationships. Several intervention points existed in Jasmine's situation where different actions might have altered the outcome. When she reported sexual assault allegations, an automatic high-risk assessment should have triggered enhanced protection measures. Law enforcement could have implemented more consistent monitoring of Britain during this critical period. A coordinated response team, connecting legal services, victim advocacy, and law enforcement, might have created a comprehensive safety plan addressing the specific dangers of separation. Electronic monitoring of Britain could have provided early warning of his approach to their home that morning. Most importantly, Better systems could have helped Jasmine access temporary secure housing during the initial separation period when lethality risk peaks dramatically. If you recognize warning signs in your relationship or someone else's, immediate resources are available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233, offers 24/7 crisis support and connects callers to local services. Their website provides safety planning abilities and chat options when calling isn't safe. Document incidents with dates and descriptions. Store this information somewhere your partner cannot access. Create an emergency exit plan including essential documents, medications, and funds. Digital safety is crucial. Use private browsing, secure passwords, and consider whether your devices might be monitored. Local women's shelters typically offer services regardless of whether you need housing, including legal advocacy and counseling. Though Jasmine Armstrong's life ended tragically at 33, her academic contributions continue to influence sociology. The department at Florida State University established the Jasmine Armstrong Memorial Scholarship for first-generation students studying social justice issues. Her dissertation research on Black women in academia was posthumously completed by colleagues and published in a leading sociological journal, where it has been cited in numerous subsequent studies. The reading program she established for underserved children continues under her name, now expanded to 3 additional neighborhoods. Perhaps most significantly, her 3 children, now being raised by her parents, represent her enduring legacy, carrying forward her values of education, resilience, and compassion. Jasmine Armstrong's story illuminates 4 critical truths about domestic violence. First, education, success, and social standing provide no immunity from abuse. It affects individuals across all demographics and achievement levels. Second, the most dangerous moment for victims occurs during separation, highlighting the need for enhanced protection during this critical period. Third, systems designed to protect victims often operate in isolation rather than coordination, creating gaps that can prove fatal. Finally, prevention requires collective vigilance, from family members noticing subtle changes to institutions creating more responsive intervention protocols. These lessons demand not just awareness but concrete action, restructuring systems, reallocating resources, and reimagining how communities respond to relationship violence before it turns deadly. Before we end today, I need to ask something important. If Jasmine's story moved you, take action now. Like this video so the algorithm shares it with more viewers. Subscribe to join our community dedicated to learning from these tragedies rather than just witnessing them. Most importantly, share this video. Someone in your network might be experiencing what Jasmine did. Watching could help them identify warning signs in their own relationship or in someone they care about. The statistics are clear. 1 in 4 women experiences severe physical violence from a partner. This means that in your extended circle, someone is suffering right now, perhaps silently. Your engagement isn't just about growing our channel. It's about creating a ripple effect of awareness. Comments filled with support and resources show those suffering that they aren't alone. Thank you for giving Jasmine's story your attention today. While we cannot change her outcome, together we can honor her memory by potentially saving others through education and awareness. Remember, domestic violence thrives in silence. By speaking up, even through something as simple as sharing this video, you help break that silence.